Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Happy Cinco de Mayo. It is May 5th. You are with the MBDA, and today we have a super webinar around setting your team up for success. Lots of discussion around retail sales training and how we best position our resource to make sure our team is operating efficiently and connecting with customers the way we want them to. In this presentation, we have Justin Kurn of FriedmanU joining us to educate us on how you can leverage online sales training in your workplace. And he'll share his multiple years of experience, past 15 years, working in this sector, and give you some insider tips on sales training and success for your team forward. So I think we'll throw it over to Justin. Justin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys. Happy to be here. All right, so I want to set the stage for everybody. The concepts we're going to be going through today are going to be sort of the fundamental process that we believe needs to be taken in order to do a handful of things at the same time. One is we're looking to improve our customer experience as a whole. But while doing that, I also want to create an environment where I can hire and retain employees over the long term. Right now, staffing is an issue that every retailer is faced with. So when you finally do have the opportunity to hire somebody, we need to make sure that they stick around. There's certain ways that you can ensure that is going to be the case, and they actually tie into how you train and onboard them. So we want to identify a few areas that we can easily plug into your current operations to ensure that your hires, whether they've been there for a few months or they're brand new, feel empowered to do their job right. If they feel empowered to do their job right, they're going to create an exceptional customer experience. And if they create exceptional customer experience, they're going to be happy because they're having great interactions with clients, and the clients are having great interactions with them. And of course, it also emphasizes your brand and store overall. There's one key component that most retailers are lacking when it comes to sales training, and that is the structure of the sales training. I'm going to share with you a couple of the key areas you need to identify to make sure that if you don't currently have a structured sales training process in place, you can create it in-house on your own with some of the details that I want to share in this webinar. So we're going to go through how to structure a proper customer engagement training, why we need to do it, and what happens if we don't. What happens if we continue to follow this path of focusing on something like maybe operations or just product knowledge? What occurs in both the customer experience and the employee's experience? First, let's talk about the structure. We believe that there is actually 6 steps that must be trained on thoroughly to understand and improve the customer journey. It starts with the initial conversations that your sales teams are having with customers. What are they saying and what are they doing with a customer on that very, very first hello? How do they present themselves? What questions are they asking? How are they greeting them? And we have a very, very fundamental belief that that initial conversation should have absolutely nothing to do with business. You need to create an environment that is friendly, warm, and welcoming. It is no different than if you had a party at your house and you had your entire neighborhood come over for the first time and you're meeting all these people for the first time. You're going to be on your A game. You're going to share stuff about yourself, potentially. You're going to ask them how they're doing. You're going to engage in a lot of different topics because it's the first time you're meeting that person. It's the same idea in retail. It just happens to happen every single day, all day long. Initial conversations are very important. Understanding what the customer is there for, understanding their needs, exceptionally important. It would be difficult to show a customer the right items. If you're coming in for a mountain bike and you're trying to show them road bikes, it would not make sense, right? So when you're asking the right questions, you're going to be able to lead them to the right products and ultimately show them the right features and benefits that correlate to their needs, their wants and needs. You can also start building the sale with recommendations. This is all stemming from kind of the original questions that you asked and their answers. Building the sale is one of the most important things that we can do in retail today. Average revenue per transaction, average number of items per sale or items per basket is the single most impactful way that you can increase revenues and performance of your team members across the board. Because the person who is there is already committed to purchasing, already committed to engaging with your salesperson. And it's really up to the salesperson to decide if they want to recommend anything else. There's a proper way to recommend. I'm going to go into that and how you actually approach adding on as a core element that one should be done in every single interaction and two should be trained on thoroughly. And that training is very, very important because most people have absolutely no idea how to add on organically. It is not something we just naturally come in inherently with when we're having a conversation. What about more? What about more? What about more? That just doesn't occur. So it has to be trained on. And then finally, overcoming concerns and objections and how you ultimately close the sale in a successful way, where both parties are leaving feeling great about what has happened. I want you to think about something. Think about a time that you personally were asked to do something that you were massively uncomfortable doing and what you did to prepare, or when you were leading up to that moment, what was going through your mind. This is pretty much every salesperson in retail every single day. They have a lot of angst around customer interactions, even if they've been doing it for a long time. This is the funny part. We hire retailers who've been in the industry for a long time, or sorry, salespeople who have been in the industry for a long time, because we're hopeful that they at least understand certain elements of customer engagement. But the reality is if they're not practicing and training on a regular basis, they have anxiety over interacting with customers, over dealing with maybe a difficult customer, dealing with a customer that happens to be an expert in one of the fields that you're going to try to discuss with them. Think about you guys. Most people are a little bit worried about public speaking. Can you imagine the last time, if any of you were hesitant to speak in public and you had to, what kind of went through your mind, what you ended up doing prior to leading up to that moment? You probably wrote down note cards, practiced them over and over again, trained yourself to get confident and comfortable. The same idea. It's the same idea we have in retail for salespeople, only we don't do that with them. So we're throwing them into a situation where we know most individuals have anxiety around, because you have to deal with multiple different personalities, multiple different customers with different backgrounds and different areas of expertise, and you've got to be on point. That's a lot to ask a person who just graduated college or has only been working in, professionally for a few years. You're asking a lot. So how do I overcome that angst? We're going to go into it. But I want you to think about just fundamentally how we are built as humans, based on how we've gone through our educational system and gone through our extracurricular activities. In school, we are going through months of practice and training in class. And then we practice at home with homework for one test. And that's not the last test. We are then keeping all that information and building off of it to go to the next test, and so on. And then you graduate and you're still training, and you're graduating and you're still training. And it's ongoing all the time. Same thing with sports. 5 days a week you're practicing. Every single day, except for game day, and maybe one day off. After game day, 5 days a week practicing. Doesn't matter if you're in a professional athlete or if you're in high school, you're practicing 5 days a week for one game day. And then we get into retail, and we have 1 day of training, and it's game day 7 days a week, or 2 days of training. Training has become this afterthought once we get into the workplace. It doesn't make any sense. We have been ingrained our entire lives to train for game day. Train, game day. And here's the funny part. In school and on the field, in a sporting event, you've got a coach or a teacher, and their job is to support you and help you and give you direction. And you're okay with that because you understood the sort of social contract that's occurred. Your job is to make me better, and my job is to learn. And I've agreed to do that. Where it falls through the cracks is in retail. We haven't done proper training. We haven't done proper development. So now when I do something incorrectly and my manager decides to have a conversation with me, I feel like they're nagging me. I feel like they're not being fair. I feel like I'm doing a lot for this company, and I don't understand why you're asking me why I didn't add on an accessory kit to the bike sale. I sold a bike. What's the problem? It was $3,800. And now you're telling me because I didn't offer them a helmet, I did something wrong? That's going to be their attitude. Because you have not created a sales culture and a training culture where the manager's goal is to improve the salesperson. And the salesperson has not given permission to the manager to coach and educate them because that was never discussed. It's not what they signed up for. If we change the conversation, think about what opens up from both a training and development standpoint and how well and easily you, your managers, or your team can absorb your professional coaching recommendations. Now the question becomes, this is all great. It's like, Justin, it's perfect. I love this. But what do I train on? What do I do? What's the material? This becomes very important. Luckily, sorry, my headset dies when I talk too much. Luckily, there is a couple opportunities for you, all of you, to develop your own materials, as well as opportunities to leverage other materials. But I want to showcase one thing on a typical retail training, I guess, timeline. I would say that 9 out of 10 retailers focus entirely too much on 2 of these 3 topics and not enough on the actual elements of the customer journey. When we go through training, we focus on front-end operations, we focus on product knowledge, and we focus on back-end operations. There's a reason we do this. It is because each of these things have been codified. They don't change, and if they do, it's not very frequent. There is a system in place, there is a process in place, there's descriptions in place. I know exactly what needs to be trained on these topics, and I know I can tell if you've been able to do it because it's a yes or no. It's either it happened or it didn't. You either know it or you don't. So it's simple from, comparison if you would talk about all types of training, because it doesn't change as frequently as maybe the dynamic of a personality. So this is what we train on. And when you train on these things and only these things, these are the only things that you probably can coach a staff member on to improve. Something's up with the point of sale. Hey, can you help? Yeah, of course. Okay, now next time, this is what you do. Oh, thank you so much. How about this? A customer gets stumped, or a customer stumps a salesperson. They want to know the difference between, let's just make it more complex. They're looking at 2 high-end bikes. And they're asking, and the road bikes, and they're asking, what is the major difference between the gear shifting systems of these 2 bikes? And the salesperson stumped. They don't know. They don't know what the actual differences are, and therefore cannot justify that feature and potentially a change in the price of the 2 items to the salesperson. So in that case, if you're observing it, or if they just happen to leave, the salesperson's probably going to come up to you and be like, I just got stumped. They asked me about the comparison of these 2 bikes and I had no idea. I need more information on these 2. I need to re-up my knowledge on these 2 things. Even if they didn't come to you doing that, you giving them that feedback, they'd probably be like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I need to know more. I need to go through the spec sheet. Can we talk to the rep? Can you have them come in and do a little demo for us? Because I don't want to get stumped again. They have given you permission to coach them on that because you've probably trained them on product knowledge. And it's pretty simple. There's a feature you don't understand. Let's train on product knowledge. What's not so simple is when there's elements that happen beyond product knowledge that you need to identify. And remember, this is what they are: opening the sale, understanding needs, product knowledge, adding on and upselling, overcoming concerns, and closing. A salesperson's in your store, somebody walks in. They go, hey, I just want to let you know that we have a couple of things on sale today if you want to check it out. And the customer goes, cool, and walks away. That is a poor opening. And that is not how you open the sale. And we know this because the customer was uninterested in having a conversation with you. When the customer comes up to the salesperson and actually says, hey, I'm looking for a bike. Can you show me what you got? And they go, yeah, it's right over here. They didn't ask a single question. They didn't understand their needs. It becomes very obvious. Maybe they took them to the wrong area. They were showing them hybrids. The guy wants a road bike. They were showing them mountain bikes. The guy was thinking about a road bike, vice versa. You already know the examples of product knowledge. What about adding on and upselling? all of you know exactly the items that should be a non-negotiable upsell for every type of purchase. If I'm buying shoes, I should add on socks. If I'm buying a bike, I should pretty much add on everything, especially if it's a first-time purchase. If I'm buying tubes, you need CO2. We can probably do this as an activity, which I would encourage you guys to do if you haven't already. What items logically add on to what purchase? And by the way, certain items are not an add-on, they're a requirement with the purchase. You need a helmet if you're going to ride a bike. It's not an add-on, it's a requirement. And therefore, it should be a requirement to suggest it. Now, how do we suggest it? How do we make it seem like we have the best interests of the customer in mind? In my opinion, it's pretty easy. I used to ride quite a bit, and when I was in San Diego, and my dad bought me a Cannondale Evo, I believe, and I was really excited to ride. But he got it for me as a gift for my birthday. And my dad had gone through, of course, the Friedman training and knows everything there is to know about selling in retail. And he likes to kind of hold his head up and say, like, I can't be sold type of an attitude. Well, the shop that was actually doing it went through the FriedmanU program, and their team's pretty good. He buys a bike. He did not, I'm sure they recommended it. They did not sell him that little accessory kit that goes underneath your seat. It's got your tubes in it, it's got your CO2. There should never be a situation, period, where a bike is sold without that kit, period. Why? Because biking as an activity, it is made or broken on the experience of the rider. If the rider has a horrible fall and has a bad scare, they may not ride again. If a biker goes 20 miles away from their home in society and gets 2 flat tires and now has to spend 5 hours trying to get home and bumming a ride from somebody, probably not. Well, they may ride again if they've been doing it for a few times, but if it's a first time experience and that's what happens, they're going to lose interest. This is about what is in the best interest of the person who is now taking on a very new activity. And if I was selling somebody a bike and I said, hey, so just a heads up, one of the most important recommendations we have is getting this accessory kit. It's almost a requirement. Here's why. There's always a chance something hits your tire in the road, you get a flat. If you get a flat and you're too far away from help, this becomes a little bit of an ordeal. You got to get the bike on your back, you got to walk, you're in biking shoes, it's a little bit awkward. It just completely changes the experience, but it can all be alleviated with simply having this little kit in the back. And before you go, I'm actually going to show you how to change both tires, and I'm going to have you do it in front of me. So you feel confident in your ability to perform if this was ever to happen, which we all know is going to happen. It's a question of when, not if. I could use that same understanding and that same example for everything. Oh, I have a helmet. Helmets have come a long way. There's a few things I want you to consider. 1, how aerodynamic it is. 2, how much ventilation does it have? 3, where are the impact points? 4, what is the benefit of having this helmet over that helmet? 5, and so on. Every single item that you sell, especially all accessories, tie easily to a product, and their number one goal is to improve the experience of the rider. So if you were to outline all of those and make all of your sales team write out, how does this improve the experience of the rider, of the client? Those are the things that you are going to train them on to say when people come in. I called it something else, but I'm blanking on the name of this. But the chamois butter, cream, whatever that's called. I'm blanking on the name because, again, my friends and I called it something funny. Nobody should be riding without that. It is like a necessity. Can you just imagine how uncomfortable it was the very first time you did a long distance ride on a bike? Again, going back to what is the benefit? Reduction in rashing, reduction in pain, a reduction in something else, burning, rashing, hair getting pulled out. These are real things that you kind of go look at and say, well, they're kind of, maybe a little weird to talk about. They're not weird to talk about. They're a reality of the sport. You don't want these things to occur. This is why this has been made, so these things don't occur. And that is how matter of fact the adding on can be, as long as you have the background in place and the training in place to guide the sales staff to feel confident about their approach and feel confident about the recommendations. A sales rep consistently sells a bike without any accessories, having the lowest number or a low number of items per transaction compared to other team members. The sales rep does, however, have the highest conversion rate in the company. So just imagine for a moment that what this salesperson needs is training on adding on. If you went to your best performing sales rep who happened to have one metric that was the worst in the company, I guarantee you, if you do not have a training culture, the conversation is not going to go as well as you would like. Or you may not have it at all. I don't want to rock the boat. He's doing fine. But he could be doing so much better. Yeah, but this mic, when I talk too much in a webinar, for some reason my mic thinks I've stopped talking, so it just cuts me out. Most retailers don't have this conversation because they don't want to rock the boat. And they think that it's going to create a negative experience for that sales rep, and they can't afford it because they're doing great. But they could be doing better, and you can coach them to be better if you've given them the proper structure beforehand and showed them the path to being professionally as good as they can be. Hey, remember we went through this add-on training? I think there's a huge opportunity here. Every single customer you talk to, you're selling something to, but you're only selling one bike. Very limited accessories. What's going on? Well, I think they're spending a lot. They spent $4 grand on that bike. I didn't want to continue to build the sale. Hey, look, we never know. We never know what someone's capabilities are when it comes to their finances and how much they want to invest into a sport like this. What we do know is the reason we have these accessories is because we want to create the best experience possible. Imagine for a moment that guy who just spent $7 grand on a Dogma is now going to go out there, doesn't have any tubes in his accessory kit, gets a flat, looks like an idiot on the side of the road. It's probably not the term you'd want to use, but I'm making a point. Looks like it needs help on the side of the road because we did not educate them on the need for these items. It's like, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm going to try it next time. So if I don't do it, let me know so we can go through it again together. That is how we hope and want the conversation to go. How it actually goes is, hey, can I talk to you about some average sales stuff? It's like, what's the problem? You didn't like that I sold an $8,000 bike? No, I did. I just thought, well, then what's the problem here? I'm sure you guys as reps do not have that kind of an attitude, but I've seen this happen. I've seen a manager approach a sales rep that's doing good or great with some recommendations, and the whole thing gets flipped around. And somehow it's like, you're nagging me. Do you not appreciate what I do? And the culture is what the issue was. They didn't have the training in place to create a training culture to allow for feedback and coaching. So when they try to instill it randomly here and there in an unorganized fashion, people feel attacked and they feel like you're on them. Like, what am I doing wrong? So we want to change this. Okay. I want you guys to try to change this. And I want you to break this cycle. The sales rep misses an opportunity. The manager has an awkward interaction with them trying to coach them. The sales rep's feeling like they're being nagged. And they don't know how to fix it because you've never given me a structure or a plan or training and guidance on what I need to do differently. It's just your opinion versus my opinion. And then nothing changes. And then I miss another opportunity. And after this happens about 5 or 6 times, I'm just going to quit because I'm not happy here. Or the manager fires you because you're not listening. That's what occurs. This is where employee retention comes in, or the lack thereof. What I'm asking for is for you to change this perpetual cycle into more of a journey. A sales rep misses an opportunity, and the sales rep understands that the miss is based on a training topic that he's reviewed with the manager. The manager has permission to coach, just like your football coach does when you drop a pass, or your soccer coach when you miss a pass. You have permission from the player to give me feedback. And you tell me exactly what needs to happen because it's what we've been working on for the past week. In retail, I can share with you exactly what needs to happen because we documented it, we went through it together, and we all agreed this was the best course of action. And the sales rep understands it and then puts it in place. Maybe they practice it a little bit with the manager. Hey, why don't we go through this back and forth a little bit so I make sure that next time I'm ready. Sales rep feels empowered like they know what they're doing, they know what they need to do to succeed, and they have the tools to do it, and they don't miss again. All of what I've described can be built in-house by each of you. As long as you have these categories in place, you can start thinking about what you would say is the best practice for your store around these topics. How do we want to engage with customers? What do we want people to say? What kind of questions do we want to ask? How important are these questions? What are the top 3? And what are some of the corresponding questions follow up? Based on the answers to these questions, where do I want to direct them? Once I direct them, how can I recommend other items to build the sale? And then how do I overcome objections and concerns like, that's really expensive. I don't know how much I'm going to be doing this. I don't know if it's that safe. There's objections, every single one of you guys here, every single day. And there's an answer to every single one of these objections. There's always first acknowledgement. I get it. I know that there's been stories out there of individuals getting hurt while biking. But I want you to know something. Comparatively to blank, insert statistic about something else, it's actually not as crazy as you may think. People get also equally as injured at bowling or something. You can compare it to a different statistic. You can say, hey, look, there's certain elements of this that can be dangerous sometimes, but that is why we practice safety, and safety is extremely important. And that is why we always recommend X, Y, and Z. This gear, this helmet, this street. What I recommend is you ride on this path. What I recommend is you always ride with a buddy so that you're together in case something happens. These are the elements that I recommend to alleviate this or overcome this concern. Pricing concern, wow, that seems like a lot of money. I understand, I can appreciate how this can seem like a lot of money. But I want to tell you something. The setup you have here is a once in a lifetime purchase. It's an investment into months and months and months and years and years and years of great time. And you don't really need to upgrade ever. Sure, the bikes change here and there a little bit, but this is the absolute best that you can buy today, and you'll never need to upgrade it. And look, if you amortize the cost of this bike over how much fun you're going to have, every ride is going to be basically a couple bucks over the course of the next few years. It's not that bad. These are just some random examples I'm throwing out in real time, but there's other areas that I'm sure you guys have experienced that you can share and say, I've heard this and I've said this, and it has resulted in that. So let's practice those things. First step is just documenting this whole process for your store, saying, here's what I want to train on. And then you're able to share with the team, guys, I have a goal here. I want to start training on these areas because I want these to be a focal point in how we operate, and I want to help each other grow in these areas. So I want to define what they are. I want to give you the why behind it. I want to show you what we'd like you to do. I want to practice that together, and I want to see it happen. And if it doesn't, I want to be able to share and coach, figure out a way for us to get there. Because the end result is going to be, you're going to feel better about your job. Our clients are going to feel like they're having the best experience possible. They're going to get a very, very similar experience every time they come in, as opposed to when they come in when your best person's on versus your new guy. You're going to create a very, very consistent client experience. And ultimately, I hope that this retains all of you because you feel good and confident about your job. There's a few different plugins here. The concept of this whole webinar was online training. Even if you built it in-house, I highly recommend placing this type of training in an online environment for a few reasons. One, training around salesmanship, which is dynamic in nature because there's different types of people and there's different types of personalities, and so many of the elements need to be very, very clearly defined and understood. You want to remove the risk of whoever is delivering the training that day forgetting something, missing something not coming across the correct way. You want that training, that infrastructure, to be standardized and easily replicated. In order to do that, in our opinion, the absolute best way is by dropping it online. And you guys can actually do this yourself. You can sign up for a learning management system, and you can develop this training that we're describing today, and you can drop it on there and say, all right, go on there. We've also done this and combined the two, both the content and the LMS. And we did this because we know a lot of retailers, one, don't have the training in place, and two, don't really want or don't have access to a learning management system, because those can be expensive depending on which one you look at. But it is the best way to replicate the training experience and to ensure your team members are being trained on the same thing every time, and they're being able to get checked in terms of their knowledge and understanding of it after the training. There's key elements of online training that everybody should be aware of. One is the content consistent, which it should be, because whatever you drop in there is going to be what everybody reads every single time, or views, or watches. So is it consistent? Yes. Does it have a knowledge check to ensure that the individual has understood that material? Can I see that someone has gone through it, and does it track the progress of the individual so I know when they've finished? Can I access it again in real time if I need to train them again on an area that they maybe didn't understand as well as we'd like? That is where online training becomes so powerful, because it answers all these questions. How do I deliver the content online? How do I make sure they're doing it? It's being tracked. How do I make sure they understand it? They're being tested. And then what do I do after that? Well, if they need additional training, they go back on. And by the way, online training does not alleviate the need for in-person training, in-person coaching. It just creates what we call a minimum level of competence for all of your staff members. They've all been delivered the same amount of information at the same time. Imagine it's the playbook in sports. This is your playbook. We go back and reference it. We use it as a starting point. We use it as a coaching point. But the playbook isn't the play. The play is on the field. There's things happening. People are running around. There's coaching I got to do in real time. And we go back to the playbook when we need to. But I get it. This guy did this. This guy did that. This customer said this. This changed. This guy got distracted. A car crash happened and 2 people walked outside. Things happen. That's fine. But we have our playbook that we go back to. This is our playbook. And I recommend putting that playbook online so that it can be easily accessed, easily tracked, easily reviewed. And that's it. Heather, I'm sure there may be some questions from the group. I'm happy to answer as many as I can, or Rochelle.
Yeah, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to email them directly to us, it's info@nbda.com, and we can pass them on, or there's an email on the screen there. We're always happy to answer questions over email as well. So I just see comments coming in over the chat saying thank you for the information. I don't see any questions coming in right now. So people watching the recording, feel free to email in questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Justin.
You're welcome, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you'd like a copy of this, definitely watch the recording. We'll have that available soon. And Justin, once again, fantastic presentation. I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.